You may be familiar with the courageous African freedom fighters who picked up arms against the French in Algeria and the British in Kenya. But do you know about the history of anti-colonial warfare in Cameroon? This is the story of the Union of Peoples of Cameroon, or UPC, a history of struggle and extreme suppression. It is also a story of imperialism and la France-Afrique. The UPC was an anti-colonial political organization with a pan-African and in some cases communist orientation.
L'UPC était et demeure un mouvement franchement anticolonialiste et je dirais anti-impérialiste. Parce que l'UPC estime que la libération d'un pays du système colonial doit, si elle doit être réalisée, se faire de façon effective.
Throughout the organization's existence, several key leaders emerged. They included Ruben Umyobe, Félix Lumiere, Ernest Wandier, Castro Osende Afana, and Abel Kingwe. One by one, each of these men would be assassinated. Only Abel Kingwe survived his attack. And of course, France gave the orders. Ruben Umyobe, the first leader of the UPC, and the man often dubbed the father of Cameroonian independence, was the first one to go. In 1955, France banned the troublemaking UPC, forcing the organization underground. Armed warfare then broke out to expel the French from Cameroon. Nyobe was sought after and killed by the French army in 1958.
If you think about even just how Ruben Umyobe was killed when he was murdered, they dragged his body out into the streets, right? That's a message we're sending to the masses, being like, this is what's gonna happen to you all if you're trying to be about that revolutionary life, if you're trying to be, a freedom fighter.
After Nyobe's death, Félix Roland Mounier became the leader of the UPC. Mounier was a socialist and a Pan-Africanist who formed a close friendship with Frantz Fanon and Kwame Nkrumah's Conference of Independent African States, and had close contact with Pan-African leaders across the continent. On a trip to Europe, Mounier's drink was poisoned with thallium, a job executed by a member of the French intelligence organization, DGSE. By this point, France had come up with a new strategy to defeat the UPC, which was calling for complete independence. France would instead rush to grant Cameroon's pseudo-independence, installing Amadou Ahidjo as its loyal president and commander-in-chief. Ernest Wandier continued the armed struggle, fighting as a combatant, even after Ahidjo declared him enemy number one and told him to leave the country. He would be sentenced to death and publicly executed. So many Cameroonian militants died in the armed struggle against France and its puppet Ahidjo, including Marxist economist Osende Afana and thousands of people whose names we may never know. The Cameroonian War of Independence soon evolved into a genocide as Ahidjo's army teamed up with French forces to massacre the Bamileke people in the Western Highlands. Over 76,000 civilians are estimated to have been killed, with over 80% of the casualties on the Bamileke side. While the UPC was brutally defeated by France and brutal political repression followed for decades, these freedom fighters continue to inspire Pan-Africanists everywhere who raise their voices to unveil the hidden history of Cameroon.